Sure. So, Jeff, I think one of the topics that's on everyone's minds these days is really sort of navigating through what feels like an unprecedentedly uncertain environment.
Yep.
And so I was hoping you could talk a little bit about your experience in thinking, how do you build things like resilience into Shopify's culture? How do you think about building things like adaptability at scale?
Yeah, well, there's a few things in there. I think on the resiliency point, one of the things, analogy I would use, we'll talk the Red Sox. The Red Sox obviously don't show up, play their first game of the season before they have spring training. And so they basically spend months thinking about what are the skills, the attributes, the things we want in our employees in order to demonstrate the traits that we need when things of uncertainty or rapid decision making or things of that ilk happen. And we try very hard to actually instill that sense of adaptability and resiliency. And there's various things we do to do that. And so, for example, one of the things, we have something called Chaos Monkey, where, I know, crazy name, but not every year, but most years, we actually show up.
How do you think about that balance?
Yeah, I think part of it is, of course, for all of us as CFOs or executives more broadly, there's an alignment between what is the culture of the organization and how you think about managing the business. And at Shopify, one of the things that we've, since day one, since Toby, the founder of the business, he's been focused on how do we make the lives of merchants better? How do we give them the tools to be more successful? And that is a constant pace of innovation, a constant pace of growth. And that means, as we think, at least for us, on the balance of fiscal discipline and kind of leaning backwards versus less invest in the things that drive growth, just our corporate ethos is one which focuses on growth. And I know for a lot of companies it evolves over time, right? You look at a business like Oracle, they've gone through a lot of phases. Microsoft's gone through a lot of phases. But at least for us, where we've been for the 10 years since we've gone public and basically the 15 years we've been in existence, is to really focus on growth. And so we've set some minimum thresholds that we think about a discipline on the financial side, which is a public company. We've told the street basically the free cash flow margins, which we're at right now, and we can do Q&A, we can talk about why that threshold or metric versus others. But we've said this is the free cash flow margin we're going to deliver. And basically anything that would deliver free cash flow margins above that, we are going to reinvest in growth. And so we went through an exercise as a management team and a board and kind of what do we think that level is. But it's a first principles base of kind of once you've set that metric, and we don't definitively provide an exact number to the street, but once we present that metric and we can be essentially a little bit above or below that, we can then invest back into what we want to do for the growth of the business. There's all kinds of applications out there, startups that are emerging. Without knowing all the ones in Boston, I'm sure there's a great crop here in Boston. There's obviously there's a bunch in New York, there's a bunch in California. And you see kind of AI for legal or AI finance or AI for product development or what have you. And how do you think about letting your team play with those, figure out which ones are best suited for what you want to do internally? We are not to the point where we've tried to corral them and say, hey, the finance department, you can use only these tools and you can't use this other software, or the engineering team. There's obviously some things we need to do in terms of being thoughtful around, obviously, control of the data, compliance, the things you want to do to make sure that you keep your customers and your employees safe and the information safe. But we really encourage people to go and just play with it and experiment with it. And because we have a fundamental belief that if you get out there and you really kind of learn how to ask more sophisticated queries, if you learn how to use Cursor better, if you learn how to use Copilot better, and we've actually seen some amazing results already, that you're going to be better and more effective as an employee.
Yeah, so some people have expressed concerns that interfacing with the public really changes not just the products that you need to offer, but the way that you go about marketing your services or products as a means to appeal to agents who may be shopping on other people's behalf. So I want to make sure I get the message right for the audience. I mean, part of what I think I heard you say, it's important they be giving thought to recognizing that the way in which consumers shop are changing, and that we need to sort of be mindful that the technology is changing in a way that our businesses need to change. Is that a fair assessment?
No, that's absolutely fair. And again, it's still evolving, and there's all kinds of things. There's some things on the technology side that still need to be developed. There's going to be a lot of data privacy and protection things that are going to come out of, hey, just kind of letting an agent go do something, right? And some people will be more comfortable with that than others. But at least for retailers, for our customers, our merchants, they've got to think about how the world is evolving.
So like, for example, they became UPS now, right? So do you view Amazon as a threat? If so, how Shopify prepares for that?
You know, we're actually partners. I mean, there's like a lot of companies, there's overlap in some spots, but we're actually partners with Amazon on a bunch of things. The one that's most prominently talked about, which we've announced, I should remember the exact date, it's probably been a year, a little bit over a year ago, where we talked about a partnership in terms of merchants working with Buy with Prime when the shipping, and then working with us on the payments front end. So, and that's not, we've talked about a few other partnerships. It's not the only partnership we have with them. So I think this whole element, you see this a lot in the tech space, as you know, this whole element of kind of co-opetition or frenemy and kind of this or that, to use whatever term you want on it. But I think we've got a very good relationship with them. And I think we as an organization partner really well. So this is not the only situation where we have that. We have a bunch of partners where maybe 5 or 10% of our businesses overlap on the margin, but they're obviously an amazing company.
And another question from the middle of the room.
Hi, Jeff. Quick question. So when Elon Musk made the comment recently, in 20 years, working is optional, or the other thought is in 20 years, unemployment rate is 20%. What is your thought on that?